A few days ago, I talked about how I was reading through the this crossover, and I'm finally going to do a review after finishing it. A review of Batman TMNT Adventures. Now, this is technically the third, second, and then the sequel to the other comic followed suit. But unlike the other Batman TMNT crossovers written by James Tynion, this is actually a crossover that doesn't follow that continuity. Instead, it's a crossover between the Batman 90s cartoon and the 2012 Turtles cartoon. That's right, so we got the two big animated shows meeting, I think, honestly, the Batman... of course we all know Batman the Animated Series, one of the best cartoons out there. And the 2012 cartoon, yeah, it's really damn good. It's really damn good. It is a legit show. So I think it was a stroke of genius to have DC and IDW, before they did the sequel to Batman TMNT, involving Bane, they were just like, yeah, let's do another Batman TMNT crossover, but instead of let's do something a little different. Let's do a crossover with our two best versions of our cartoons, and have them meet each other. So yeah, I think that was just a really smart idea on their end. So the story is that Krang portals have been showing up in Gotham, and they've been showing up in Arkham specifically, and some of the Arkham inmates have broken out and are now escaping to the other universe's New York. And the Turtles and Batman are thrown in this adventure where they have to round up the Arkham inmates before they cause too much damage to New York City. Now, this crossover is really good. Now, if you guys remember from my last time I reviewed Batman TMNT, while I did like it and the artwork was really good, it did feel more like a Batman comic than it did a actual crossover. And that's the problem, especially when you do Batman crossovers. It's like, sometimes Batman gets too much of the spotlight. And yeah, I've seen crossovers before where one character gets more spotlight than the other. But this time around, and it's especially bad in Batman crossovers, where Batman gets so much of the spotlight. But yeah, the big thing with this is that... with this crossover is that this Batman TMNT crossover is actually like even paced. Like, it's actually like both sides get even amount of spotlight. The Ninja Turtles and Batman, as well as Batgirl and Robin and Nightwing later on, definitely get that shared spotlight. It's really good. Like, it was really refreshing to see. And again, you gotta hand it to Nickelodeon and Warner Brothers for playing nice to allow this crossover to happen. So yeah, good on you, Nickelodeon and Warner Brothers, for playing nice with one another to do this, because honestly, like I said, this is probably the best, although I can't really judge because I haven't read the Batman TMNT crossover, Batman TMNT 2 crossover, so I can't really judge. But of the two I've read so far, yeah, this is way, I enjoy this a lot more than the Tynion book. And I know the Tynion book is good, but yeah, I kind of like this a little more. Not to say the other one is bad, I'm just saying that I kind of got a lot more enjoyment out of reading this book. So anyway, so the crossover is a 6-issue story, but honestly, issue 6 is more of an epilogue. It's really weird, I know. Issue 6 is kind of treated more like an epilogue, but I'll get to that in a moment. But the main consecutive storyline is, like I said, the Arkham inmates have broken out and have escaped into New York via Krang portals. And yeah, I like that this isn't like a cartoon retelling of the other story where it had Raish and Shredder teaming up. We do get Shredder in here, but we get a few more characters. Now, this comic is written by Matt Manning, and Matt Manning really knows how to write both respective characters. He really does know how to write both franchises. Mostly because Manning had done The Batman as well as Beware the Batman. He also was one of the writers, apparently, on the 2012 cartoon. So I do like that. I really do like that they bring up, we have a writer who is competent enough to know how both sides should be written. The fight sequences are very fluid. I love the artwork in here. It feels it feels like the artwork itself is cartoony, but that's the point. You're writing the cartoon versions of both respective franchises. It makes sense to have a cartoony feel to this comic. And everyone, at least, everyone looks like they belong in their respective shows. Like, everyone feels like they feel like their respective shows. And you can almost hear the voice actors saying this dialogue. Like, I can almost hear Kevin Conroy's voice, or Seth Green's voice for Leonardo, and like I said, Conroy's voice for Batman, Tara Strong's Batgirl, Rob Paulson's Donatello. I could hear all of them. I could hear all those voices as I'm hearing this. And that's something, that's also a mark of another really good comic. There's also some really great little nods here and there. Like, there's a moment where they're in the Shell Razor, and and Mikey turns on the radio, and it's a song about Wingnut. But if you listen to the lyrics really closely, it sounds like another certain song that's centered in the TMNT universe. Go Wingnut, go Wingnut, go! Go Wingnut, go Wingnut. Yeah, it's literally the Vanilla Ice song. There's also a nice little nod that Joker, while he's in the Arkham, he's reading a book written by one M. Hamill. I was like, that's clever. There's tons of little Easter eggs like that, that's little homages to both respective franchises. But it's not like blatantly out there. It's like one of those blink and you'll miss it kind of things, or it's like, oh, that's clever. I especially like how there is like while there was one big consecutive story, there are these fun little moments with respective characters having these team up moments. Like the first time the Ninja Turtles and Batman and the Bat family encounter, the first two villains are actually Poison Ivy and Snakeweed, which I was like, that's perfect. And you've also got a subplot story of Joker and Harley taking over the Foot Clan, which that part I was like, really? I was like, really? Joker took over the Foot Clan after dousing Shredder? But I will say that Shredder does overcome the the laughing gas that Joker sprayed him with eventually. Like, his hatred was so strong, and even Batman says, even I couldn't do that. I like that they pretty much show how much the 2012 Shredder was so much of a badass that he managed to overcome something that Batman couldn't do. And while I would have liked to seen Batman and Shredder throw down, yeah, we kind of got that, although it was a little disappointing in the other crossover, but I feel like Matt Manning was like, yeah, we got that already. We don't need to do a retread. Although, admittedly, that would have been a lot more fun to see 90s Batman take on 2012 Shredder, because that dude is 2012 Shredder is the ultimate Shredder, in my opinion. Not to discredit the other versions of the Shredder, but that is, when I think Shredder, that's who I think of. So, the big storyline in this comic is that it wasn't the Krang who opened the portals, it was the Mad Hatter. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, the Mad Hatter, because he's a tech genius. And he actually tried to create a new Wonderland in New York. There's also some nice stuff with the Scarecrow, and every villain gets a spotlight. It feels, even though there's consecutive storylines, it does feel like there's storylines within storylines that don't feel cluttered. In fact, for the 5 issues in here, I was like, god damn, everything feels like perfectly paced. Everything feels really well paced. And then we come to the epilogue issue, which before I talk about it, it's kind of funny to note that I did some background research, and apparently they had finished up the story in 5 issues, but they had like one more issue to go, so they were like, you know what, fuck it, let's just do one more issue. Because that was the thing, is that they actually planned this to be a 5-part crossover, but they had 6 issues. So they finished the story in 5 issues, so they were like, well, shit, we got one more issue, what do we do now? Oh, I know. So they literally just wrote a storyline that's written a few months a little further in the future, where we now come to the part where Tim is now Robin, and the Krang have invaded Gotham. So that was pretty much it. It was just one big it's actually in the trade called Epilogue, where the Krang just invade Gotham, and the Turtles come back to help the Bat family fight back against the Krang. So I thought this was really fun. It definitely is a fun all-ages comic. It really gets the voices of both respective franchises. I just can't say enough good about this. Like I said, there are some moments, like again, the Joker spraying Shredder with the fear. Why do I keep wanting to say fear toxin? The laughing gas. That's one moment that made me kind of roll my eyes. But yeah, and are some minor stuff here and there, but it doesn't hinder my how much I enjoyed this crossover. It was just tons of fun, and like I said, I liked it a little more than the first Batman TMNT crossover. So yeah. But you guys tell me in the comments below. If you've read this, let me know what you guys think, and hope you all enjoyed this review. If you've read this, did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Comment below, let me know. And yeah, once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later.